Good morning, class, and welcome to the Friday Fundamental that is going to be focusing on a bathroom design today. My name is James Henderson. I will be your instructor for the next 60 minutes as we attempt to take you through the design that I have on screen right now. Now, this is a saved image of where we hope to get to. There may be a few things that we have to shortcut a little bit, but overall I'm fairly confident that in the course of an hour we should be able to get this design done. We will make use of SoftPlan's cabinetry and some of the customization that can be done with it. We'll be designing a shower, which you can see over to the right side, with some custom options there. We'll be making use of SoftPlan's extensive symbol libraries in order to place in custom bathtubs and sinks and such, and even little finishes and so on, like the towels on the bottom and the use of a shelf. And then finally, even some of SoftPlan's room/interior modes, which will allow us to place things like glass tile in places that we want within the program. So this is the direction that we're going to go. Is obviously I have an image that has been created from scratch, and so what I want to do is just simply take you to what the actual drawing is going to look like at this point. And so what you will see over on the left-hand side is basically just an outline or floor plan sketch of basically the apartment that was, as far as the layout is concerned. And then on the right-hand side, the split screen that we have, we will actually show you what the plan view is going to look like. And so at this stage, close that out, I'm going to actually begin to zoom up into the floor plan area of the actual drawing, and just getting my screen up there for everybody to be able to see. Okay, I'm going to zoom into the floor plan area, and you see we basically have a large, just kind of open space, if you will. And if I click on the 3D shaded tab, I'll be able to zoom in and begin to look at this from a plan view as well as three-dimensional perspective as we begin to begin drawing it. And so we're going to, over here on the right-hand side, as I use the arrow keys, through the doorway that's there will be the toilet room. We'll place the shower here, and then zooming more towards the left-hand edge where the two windows are, we're going to place ourselves a claw tub and faucets and so on to get all of that laid out. And I will be jumping back and forth between different modes, whether I'm looking at 3D shaded versus the floor plan, because I really do feel like having the 3D model open is going to help you for space planning. It helps me with the design perspective, etc. And then I jump to the floor plan when it comes time to actually dial in on getting exact dimensions and so on. So as I'm clicking on the main floor plan, and I come in through the draw option and I select symbol. SoftPlan ships with literally thousands of symbols, and then we also open up the libraries to be able to allow you to import custom symbols as well, so you can bring in symbols from outside sources. We do, for SoftPlan Plus subscribers, allow or continue to update these libraries as well, so you'll be able to go in and you'll see that over time libraries may be added to, etc. And so as I click on the manufacturer and then open up into SoftPlan Plus, it's here that I can begin to scroll down, and you can see all of the different libraries that are available to us for use. And so in this case here, if I click on the Villeroy and Bosch and then I come down to the CETA library, I can see that I actually have the actual tub that I'm going to use. And so I get a three-dimensional perspective of what this symbol is. And right now, my biggest concern is I'm just looking to get this placed for space planning. And so when I place it in here, I can, begin to move it so that I, have it exactly where I want it to be, giving room for possibly, faucets to be placed in back relative to the windows, etc. And then, of course, there's a fireplace. And you can see over here in the 3D shaded perspective, I also have, the option of seeing it and where it's going to be, actually placed as well. And so this is just, as we're looking at it, giving us a, just kind of an overall perspective on the actual said symbol. And so again, I can continue to use the manufacturers from the list. And so if I come back into the SoftPlan symbols, they're all listed here as far as the library is concerned, and they start out alphabetically. And then as you're using them, you can go into the different lists that are there. And so as I click on the hand scroll library that I want, and I'm going to select the actual bath, and as I come down into the two handle, you'll see that I've got a listing of symbols that are here. And in this case, selecting the two handle freestanding option that's there. When I click on that, I can now position my cursor where I want to, insert the said symbol, and it's now going to place it. And once again, I'm just kind of designing this as I go, and so I can move this where I want it to be placed, relative to the actual tub, and I get the preview over here on the three-dimensional model. So as we go forward, okay, so we've got the tub in there, and of course right now we're just space planning, right? And so what I'm going to do for you right now is I'm going to move this back to the previous tab group so that as we're looking at this, it's taking up kind of the full screen once again, and so you can see what we've got here as far as the tub is concerned. And then as we look at it from a main floor perspective, this also fills up a little more of the screen right now. Okay, and so we can see the what we got. So the next thing that I want to do is I'm actually going to come in and design the shower at this stage. And so what I'm going to go in and to design this is, if you come in through draw and you take a look at wall, you're going to see that I've got a wall that's defined that is the shower wall right now, okay? And that shower wall is nothing more than just glass at this stage. And so if I come in, I'm just going to sketch this wall quickly on the drawing screen. I'm just kind of eyeing it in, and you can begin to see here in the preview in the lower left-hand corner the glass wall. And as I edit this wall and I come into the definition option, you'll see literally the material is just glass. I made it a 1/2 inch in thickness with a 96-inch height, which will be modified as we go. Okay, and then as far as the how it's going to be viewed, I've set this up to actually have just a blue color so that it stands out. All right, so there's nothing special about this wall, as far as that goes. When you take a look at this inside the 3D, okay, as we zoom back out and in, all right, as I take a look and do a surface edit on this, it's literally just defined as having a white glass material. And as we take a look at the options, it's going to have an opacity of 30%, which means that it's 70% transparent. That's why we can see through onto the other side of the wall. Okay, and in time we'll probably turn on reflectivities and so on so that we can actually see through the actual plan. Something else that I may do early on in this design, even before I dimension this, is I may come in through the model option, and I'm going to click the interior elevation option, and I'm going to simply position my cursor the direction I wish to view, click, and move it towards the direction I want to view. And so what it does is you'll see this red dotted section line that runs all the way through, and the arrow pointing towards the back wall. This will now allow me to generate an interior elevation, which may become useful for me, going forward, because at this stage I'll be able to draw in the two-dimensional model as well as the three-dimensional model. And so I'm going to change this into textured, which will just give me a little more definition possibly, okay, as we're working with it. And so, and possibly even when I get the ceiling on and so on, it will, begin to, cut out some of the shadows and so on that are coming in from overhead. And so once I have this up, as I begin to draw in either floor plan, 3D shaded mode, or interior, all of them are going to be connected at this point. And so I could come in through draw and opening, and on the interior doors, I'm going to come down to shower. and I'm just going to pick a 28 by 80 glass door, and I'm going to click to insert it. And you can see the glass door is shown here, but it also is going to show up inside the plan view, okay? And it will also show up inside the 3D shaded, all right? And currently that door is shown as open, and so if I want to edit this door, I could come in through the display, and rather than having it open in the plan view, I could certainly turn off the open in model and have that closed. Now at this stage, the door, everything is just relative to the wall at this point, and or to the floor, and so we may want to offset this up and create some sort of a curb in here. Okay. Now I could do that by creating another wall type. Or for today's class, I just want to make use of solids, just so you can kind of get a feel for how you can actually use a solid option, to mimic something in 3D as well. So the first thing I'm going to do before I even do that is get the shower dimensioned. And so I may just come in and run a couple of dimensions here, and I'm just going to edit this dimension, and I'm going to modify this to, let's say, 4'10". So we're going to have an oversized shower, and I'll edit this other dimension here to, let's say, 4'6", and hit the left arrow key, and so we get basically that oversized shower inside the actual plan. Okay, and now I could come in through the draw, and I'm going to select the solid, and in this case I'm literally just going to click a cube, and the cube that I'm drawing at this stage is really just to represent the curb that I want to put in here. And as I've said, it is possible that I could have just done this with a wall type, but what I want to do is just for right now, we're just going to be using this as a space planner, okay? And so these cubes could be modified and moved and so on, so that they perfectly align with one another. And I'll leave it, I can adjust them as far as heights are concerned, as well as what the lengths are going to be, and I can even edit them on the fly. And so in this case here, I've got the length and the width and the height. If I just want to put in a 6-inch height on this cube, and do the same thing over here. Now the cubes I can already see are actually sitting below the floor, or below the actual floor that's sitting in there. So this is just a matter of modifying the offset and pushing them up, whatever the depth of the floor system is going to be, and doing a repeat edit. And as I take a look inside the 3D, I can now see what the cube is actually doing. Okay, so there is the 6-inch cube that's going to represent the curb option that will be used. All right, and it's now with the offset sitting on top of the floor system. The actual walls themselves, if I come in and take a look, I'd actually want to offset these up as well in order to sit on top of the the cube itself, so that I've got the door not sitting down inside the actual cube itself. I could also, right now the glass ceiling, or these are running all the way to the ceiling, and so if I wanted to modify the heights of these walls, again, this is why I do some of this inside 3D, because I can actually set up or modify what the glass shower is going to look like as far as heights are concerned and so on. And so that gets us, for right now, a shower in place. And as I look at this, you can see we've got, there's the cubes. Here is the glass walls that are being shown. There's the bathtub, and we've actually also already got the faucets and so on in place. And so the next thing that I want to do is I really want to come in and begin to modify what the where the cabinets are going to be placed, and that's going to run all the way across here. And of course I'm at an advantage because I've designed this once before, and so I'm going to be working from my knowledge of the design, and you're kind of following along. But what I'm hoping to do is just at least convey to you what this will where to find the objects that you want to draw with. And so I can draw in interior elevations, I can draw it inside the floor plan, etc. So it's entirely up to me what we're going to do. For right now, I'm going to actually edit the walls, and I'm just going to add a surface texture, just a beige, simply so that you can actually see the walls a little bit better. And I can now come in through Draw and Cabinet, and I'm just going to select Vanity here inside the the elevation preview, and you can already begin to see that it's attempting to add a vanity in here. And so right now the type that I'm drawing is a vanity, and you see the shape that we've got here, and I could now come in and I could select what the face layout is going to look like. as well as what the um, uh, type is going to look like as well. So right now we've got just basically a standard drawer, and we've got a flat bottom, and we're using, if you will, the square flat panel. And so in this case here, just going with a different kind of design, I'm just changing this to be flat, and I could draw this where I want it to be based on the size. And so I'm going to come down here and select this to 18 inches. So we're going to have a door and a drawer panel, and it's going to be a flat panel. And so once I have placed one of those, it drops it in. And so this can be moved. It can be placed wherever I want it to be, but that's just how I can lay one of those out. And so now continuing forward, I may come in through the draw cabinet. I'm going to go back to the vanity. And I'm staying with the flat panel, but this time I'm going to change this to have 2 drawers and 0 doors. Okay, and so once I've selected what it is that I want this to look like, as far as that's concerned, I can click to insert that, and so it goes. You can just continue to draw these in, whether you're doing it inside the 2D or the 3D. Okay, as far as the actual drawing is concerned. And so looks like I've drawn a couple of them in there. Let's just take a look at what we've got. So I've got my drawer, I've got my door over here, and so I'm just going to draw select and add another one in, and then draw select to add a 2-door. And the draw select tool is just hitting the letter S on the drawing. And so when you take a look at it, it actually looks like I actually had 2 of those in there. And so I'll just explode this, and I'm just going to draw this back in. All right, so when you do the draw select, what it allows you to do is I'm just using draw and select, and I'm actually picking the item. Now I use a lot of the shortcuts like the letter S, and once you click the item, you're actually able to draw it elsewhere on the drawing screen, and it takes the properties with it. And so that it's just kind of a pretty cool option that you can use to grab something to draw it elsewhere on the actual plan. And so in my case, I may select a vanity to draw elsewhere on the vanity, and so on. Now, as I'm looking at these, here, I'm going to begin to edit and change these, vanities on the fly. And so I may begin with the end ones that we've got here right now, because as it stands right now, we want to put some glass doors in here. We may want to add some, feet and so on to the actual, vanities themselves. And so I'm going to zoom this up inside the 3D, and you can see what we have. And we're working in shaded mode as it is right now. So I'll edit this vanity on the right-hand side, and here's what we see as far as the cabinet run is concerned. All right, so we've got the various dimensions that are there. As far as the top height, we can change things like the finish. So if we want this to be, something of a darker finish, we can apply that to the actual drawing, here. Now, I want to go in and I want to change things like the face on this, and so this could have been something that I was doing, on the fly as I was putting it together. But in this case here, I just want to change this door to actually possibly have like a glass front on it. Okay, and so if that's something that we're going to do, I may just come in and actually I may need to custom define this as far as the vanity is concerned. But I could have added the glass in there. So let's enable this right now for the custom face, and I'm actually going to change this from a standard to a glass option so that we can actually see it here. And I'll click OK, and we actually get the glass face on the front just simply by selecting the custom face, editing it, and changing it from the standard that was there, and applying the glass front. And so down here, I'm just going to repeat it, that exact same change, so that we now have a glass face on the actual doors themselves. And in time, we'll add things like shells and so on to the actual drawing there. And so the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to want to come in and change the cabinets that are here in the middle, because I want to change kind of their height and create like a 2-door that's elevated up, and then we're going to maybe place a shelf that's going to be placed underneath there. And so I'm going to edit this cabinet right now, and when I come to the to the actual vanity cabinet, I've got my dimensions, okay, and you can see that my height is currently 30.5 inches and so on. So I'm going to just change this to 18 inches, and by default it drops this down to because of the height change. And so I want to come in and change this to match. And I think actually I just modified that. I want this to be 30.5. So I'm just editing this cabinet over here, and I'm going to change this to be 30.5 inches to match the vanity. And so knowing that I want the two of these to be the same, I'll just come in and do a duplicate. I'll pick this cabinet and then have the same change applied over here. And so what we now have is we've got just the dual drawers right here, and then we've actually got kind of the two end cabinets. And the last thing that I want to do with this right now is come into the actual cabinet itself, and we're just going to change this to match as far as the finish is concerned on this. And so that's just, we're just kind of building it, one piece at a time, as far as the plan view is concerned. And I can clean that up and, kind of just centering it in the room right now as far as, the options are concerned. Other things that can be done, whether you're editing it in plan view or you're editing it in the 3D and so on, would include the addition of being able to come in and edit things like adding a sink or basin, to this option. And so I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a sink to this vanity over here. Now, we could go just strictly to the standard bathroom libraries, and we could just simply select a single, basin oval. And when I do that and I take a look at it inside the 3D, it's going to add, a simple, basin there. I'm going to hit undo on this, and I'm going to re-edit it this time, and I'll select the sink and then just take you in and show you kind of some of the manufacturers once again. And so if I come down to the list of manufacturers that are here, and open that up. And this is going to take a little bit of time to just get to know where everything is, I'm sure for you, but I'm also sure that, over time you will, get a feel for where things are at. But I'll select the Villeroy and Bosch at this point. I could have also, gone in and actually done a search on this if need be, okay, but I'm going to go to scroll down. Let's see what we've got here. And I'll select this option here. And we're just looking for something that's going to, sit on top, if you will. And so I'll set this up, and then I'm just going to repeat edit that same change, okay? These ones might be a little on the large side, and if so, then I either need to change the size of the vanity, okay, or I need to make a smaller sink. And so let's edit this, and I'm actually just going to change the vanity cabinet and change the width to, say, 30 inches, and I'll do the same thing over here, and I'm just going to, edit this and change this one as far as the width is concerned to 30 inches, and that's just going to, if I take a look at it inside the main floor plan, I can now, again, they were perfectly centered until I moved them, and so now I'm just going to run the cleanup, and that gives me a better feel or shape, if you will, for what I'm doing. And so something like so. And so now that we've got those set in place, I can come in and I could actually also, go so far as to begin to add things like faucets and so on, to the drawing. And you can see I'm just kind of playing with the design as we go forward. These are sitting directly on top, and I'm just kind of playing around with placement points on them and so on. But again, I could edit these here, and I could now go in and actually also on the if you will, vanities set in to add things like sinks and taps to these as well. And so as I'm taking a look at this, I could for the vessel sink itself, go into the list of manufacturers that are there, and you begin to add things like faucets and so on. And so I'm going to scroll down to find the manufacturer, and this is, just again, I'll go into the SoftPlan Plus library just because there's so many great symbols that are, that ship with the software, and we'll select this, Brizzo option, and I'm going to go down into Charlotte, and now once I get down into here, I can begin to find, what it is that we want to add, to that symbol, and I'll do a, same change here. Okay, these I'm going to need to, it looks like just to clean up, on the actual drawing itself, and so I'll just run a cleanup on them. I'm going to take a look at what we've got here because I've been playing around with just changing some dimensions and so on, so I want to, just get everything, set up on the actual drawing itself. As far as the taking a look at the, let me edit this here, and I'm going to run a cleanup on it. We want this actually to be at 30.5 inches and do the same thing over here. Okay, so now again, we're still designing and moving this. I'm probably going to wind up moving these, over on in time. I'm going to come into the actual vanity, symbol that's here, and you can start going into things like accessories, and we could add things like legs and so on. So in this case here, you'll see that I'm going to add legs to the actual bottom of this actual vanity, or feet to it. I can go in and begin to add things like that I want round feet and so on the bottom side of the actual vanity itself. I'm going to run a cleanup and a save on this, and I'm going to, because I edited this as an entire run of vanities, I'm going to turn off any, feet that are actually being used or legs on just these individual, on the vanities that are in the middle. And so that's, again, just found underneath the, accessories, because I only want them on the outside, as far as that's concerned. And so now we've added our feet to the outside edges while not having them on the inside edges, as far as the vanity is concerned. So this is where we've gotten in a short period of time. We've managed to lay out a shower. We've got the bathtub over here. I'm going to move and at this stage the vanities away from cleaning up to the wall, and I'm actually going to come in here and actually remove them from the cleanup option. And because I'm doing that, what it will do is it will prevent the vanities from actually finding the wall, and that's why they're moving to it, just simply because they find the shower wall and they're snapping down to it. I'm actually attempting to get it so that it's centered inside the room and no longer finds the shower wall over here. And so as we take a look at this, I've moved it down. I'm removing it from cleanup so that it's kind of being left where I place it on that front. Now, again, looking at it from an interior perspective, we begin to see, what things are looking like, and you can draw within this, this view, which I've already, talked a little bit about. So things like symbols that are going to enhance depth might include like mirrors, and of course, we're going to want to go in and add things like, a tile backsplash, etc. And so I could come in through here, and in this case, I'm just going to type in or do a search for, mirrors, and it's going to, pull up, my list of mirrors that are here. And for right now, I'm just drawing one in. And I may come in through the adjust feature and pick this mirror, and now I'm just really stretching it where I want it to go. So this is just part of the design, process, as far as that, is concerned. And so I, would run a cleanup and a save on something like that, and you can see, what that is, what that's going to look like, there. And I can come in and begin to also add things like interior finishes, because right now, if we change this 3D shaded, and we're going to take this to a textured mode now. And as I begin to do that, you're going to see I've got subfloor, down here. I basically just got a beige wall that I, placed, across here. I've got no tile inside the actual shower itself. So those are all finishes that we're going to want to take this to in order to get the actual finale or finished, model that I showed you earlier, which had, kind of the glass tile across the back, kind of a blue-colored wall, and then, the elongated, stone tile that we were going to use, on the shower itself. for one thing, I'm going to come in and also add, things like ceilings and lighting, which is going to play a huge part in what we're doing as well. Within the main floor plan, I can change into room mode. And when I change into room mode, okay, this is going to be our master bath over here. And once inside the room mode, I can come in through room, and I could just select bath. And when I select the auto trace and click, what it will do is it initially comes in here and shades the entire room. And what it is actually proceeded to do is add a flooring tile to this, add things like trim to the base, or like the baseboard wall that's there, and it's also going to add things like paint color to the walls themselves. So all of this could be then modified or changed on the fly. Okay, you could come in here and we could, right off the top, if we wanted to change the flooring that's going to be on here, okay, I'm going to just right-click and edit this, and it pulls up the tile, and I could select a different style of tile altogether, okay, from the listing that's there. And I could even go in and change the options on this, and I'm going to change the dimensions on it to say something like 8 inches by, let's say, 2 feet. And so now when I click OK on something like this, you're going to see that we're actually getting more of a, lined, or rectangular style tile that's going to be running through there. And so that's, one thing that could be, done just by changing, the actual finish, okay? As you take a look at this room, if I were to break the room down into interior mode, you would see that if I right-click on any of the interior walls right now that have polygon shapes running all the way around them, I actually have a wall covering of paint, I have a baseboard of colonial, and then I have a flooring of ceramic that's in there. Additionally, a ceiling was also added into this option, and so we now have a ceiling option that's going to be placed in here. Okay, and that ceiling will go to the lowest plate height, so I'm going to override it to push it all the way up to the highest wall height, which is the actual walls of the house. Remember, I put a 7-foot wall inside the bathroom right here, and so that's why initially the ceiling seems so low, and so I'm just going to override and push that back up as far as the ceiling is concerned. And so if I were to take a look at this, as far as the wall height's concerned, I'll edit this. I can see it's an 8-foot, 11.625 inches, and so inside the ceiling, I'll change that to 8-foot, 11.625 inches, so the ceiling is flush with the top of the wall. Now, I could also, and I'm going to have that ceiling run all the way across. It went around the shower wall, so I did a fillet and just filleted the 2 corners, so that as I'm looking at the let's take a look here. We've got an 8-foot wall and 8-foot, 11.65 inches to push it down. And so as I take a look at that ceiling now, we can see it's pushed to the top of the wall, okay, and the fillet has it carry all the way over the actual shower itself. Now, again, the room mode, when I placed that room mode in, okay, it actually went around the shower itself, and so this is where we may get into, controlling some of our own design features of what we want to do, where we want to place things. And so one of the things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in and tile that shower, on the right-hand side. And so I'm going to, zoom this up, and I'm going to, inside the interior mode, I'm going to come in through Draw and Wall Covering, and I'm just going to pick this stone tile number 1, and I'm going to click to, begin the sketch process, and, click for there. And when I do this, the stone tile is, currently running the full height of the wall. That may be fine, and as I take a look at this inside the 3D texture, you can see where the stone tile is now running. And this may be a case of where I just want to do a surface copy of this tile and paste the same tile into the actual shower itself. And so now what we've got is we've got the floor tile and the ceiling tile, running there. And there's a whole host of tiles that can be used. I mean, you don't have to stick with what, the defaults are. I simply picked this one to begin with, but certainly as far as the different tiles that are in there, you'll see that we've got different ceramic tiles and so on. I'm currently in the porcelain, okay, but just going up to and this is looking at the various manufacturers that are there, but you can certainly go into the different materials that are here, and we've got all kinds of tiles and options that are going to be available. In the interior finish, I'll find that I've got ceramic tile that could be used as far as for the flooring is concerned. Again, so this is just a starting point. So I'll pick the tile here. I'm going to pick the ceramic tile that's there, and you can see all of the different options that are available to me. And so in this case, if I go down to say stone, and I want something a little bit lighter, okay, as far as that option is concerned, I could still keep the same dimensions that I wanted, and now I've quickly changed it on the fly to a different texture altogether that's maybe a little bit brighter and so on as far as the plan is concerned. All right, so that can be used. The paint colors can be modified. So in this case here, I've done a right-click edit on this beige, that's here, and I'm just going to go into the, Sherwin-Williams, paint color choices, and you can see that I can just begin to scroll through all of the options that are there, whether I know them by name or whether I know them by color swatch. Okay, so this is going to be entirely up to me to pick them by name, number, etc. Okay, and I can list them so that as I'm scrolling through, I can see the actual listing of the number itself, and pick that color to apply to the drawing. Okay, as far as that option is concerned. And so that's just, again, entirely up to you how you want to show them and list them, but we make those options available to you. I'm picking a little more of a kind of a blue-gray that I'm going to place inside the actual drawing itself. Okay, and so I'm just going to, using the surface copy and paste, pick this tile and apply it to the option that's right there. Now, inside the shower itself, this is where, again, I can control and use of the interior mode. Okay, so coming into the interior of the floor plan and drawing inside the interior, I could select flooring. And I'm just going to use tile number 1 for right now, and I'm going to manually trace this inside the room itself. And so, once I've placed this in here, I'll take a look at it in 3D, and you can see the tile that's actually being used, okay? And so now what I could do is go in and, apply a different, sort of texture to that. And so I'm going to, look at this from the top down. I'm going to come in through options and material, and for right now I'm just going to turn the ceiling off, and this allows me to see the plan looking from the top down, if you will. And so now I could do a surface edit on this tile that was placed in there, and again, this all comes down to just looking through the list of manufacturers that are there. So in this case, I could go to what the option is. I'm going to pick kind of a glass tile that's offered as part of the option here, and you can see I've got the different textures that are available. And so again, I select something for use inside the actual plan. And so sometimes it's just easier to look at it from a 3D. I'm in the texture mode, and I just select the view looking down from the top. Don't get too concerned with the fact that there's a sky in the background. Right now, all that is just as I'm looking at this mode, there happens to be a background option on. I could just simply set that to color and turn it off. So it's just added for background effect right now. All right, I want to zoom up the shower for just a second. And so this is where we're kind of working, if you will, as far as the drawing is concerned. And we're going to want to place things like faucets in there, and maybe even different tile patterns and so on, a niche, if you will, for placing the shampoo or and so on. And so that's all the stuff that I want to kind of do just for a couple of minutes here. And I appreciate this class is moving fairly quickly, but just trying to cover everything off that you can actually do, inside the drawing itself. And so, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place, kind of some of the faucets and so on, and that we want to use on those. And so if I come in through, I'm going to do this inside the floor plan, and I'm going to change into drawing mode to begin with. And so if I select symbol, again, there's I could start to do a search for shower, which is going to take me into, some of the predefined showers, and then I may, eventually get down into finding things like the manufacturers that we want to use. And so here I could find, what if there's a specific shower head that I want to use, okay, and so that's just doing the search. I could then position my cursor where I want to add that, and add this handle in, and then I'll add the shower head on top of that there. And I may even also select if I wanted a handheld one, and add these in. And so you'll see that just by adding those in, I've actually got them listed on the actual drawing itself, okay, and showing up. And so all that was just a quick search of those symbols when I went in through draw and symbol, and I did a search of shower, and it took me down to find these various symbols that are there, okay. The other thing that we may want to do, as I said, is go in and add small cutouts inside the wall, and these can be done using a opening type or a niche. And so as I'm looking at this inside the plan view, I'm going to come in through opening, and earlier we drew a glass shower door, so it's going to take me there, but I'm going to just go down to the niche option that we have right here, and as I scroll this, you'll see that I've got various options that are available. And so I'm going to click to insert one of them in there to begin with. Now I want to edit this, and so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to move my cut line forward, and this is going to allow me to save those changes and just pull this up inside the actual preview itself. And so now I should be able to come in and edit the niche. So I just did a right-click edit on this, and I can remove the product code on this and actually come in and now begin to change the dimensions on that if I want, okay? And so you can see that I've actually got one in there, and I could even now come in and copy a secondary one down below it. Okay, and these are entirely, again, I can edit them on the fly. So this one I might make it, 2 feet in height, and so we're going to have just a couple of different ones there, just to create some sort of a perspective or view on that, as far as that goes. Now I can edit or modify the actual dimensions. I just did a copy and drag, if you will, on this, and so depending on where I want it exactly, I'm going to make this 3 feet to the bottom of it, and then it's a 1 foot 6 inch height. And then this one here, I'm going to edit it. It's again a 12-inch height, and on the offset itself to the dimension, I'm just going to make it 6 feet. And so I've got one 3 feet and one at 6 feet as far as those are concerned. As I look at them in 3D, you can see what the niche looks like at this stage, and the tile fits inside it, or follows it, on the plan. Now, let's just hypothetically say I just wanted to place this same kind of tile inside, these views, and I just want it for right now from a perspective of, how would it look? This is where, again, earlier in the class, I used a solid cube to create the curb, and this time I'm actually going to come in and just going to draw and solid, I pick symbol, go to draw and solid. I can now come in and I can select if I wanted to do another cube again, just to create a thickness on that, okay, or I could even go so far as to just simply use a plane. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click, and I'm going to sketch this plane across, okay, and so I've got what just looks to be a single line there. And I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to give it a height of 1 foot 6 inches, okay, that gives it a depth, all right, or a height on there. The dimension, I just drew it in by eye to start, okay, but I did get it bang on the 3 feet. And I'm going to edit this up, let's say 3 feet, and including the floor system, 0.625 inches. Now let me show you what it looks like. As I look at it in 3D, there's the plane that I've got, and I've got, if I look at it from here, there it is sitting there. And so I'm going to do a copy and just copy another one up here, because in time I'm going to, create this as being kind of the tile that we'll be editing. And this time I'm just going to make it 12 inches. And the height is 6 foot 11.625 inches in order to get it exactly the way I want it. And so as I'm looking at these in 3D, and again, this is kind of sitting outside the niche, out front of it right now, so just bear with me. Notice what I'm about to do. I'm going to select Edit, Surface, Copy, Paste. I'll pick this and assign it to those there. And now what we're going to do is just move those into the actual niche itself. And so I'll pick Move and Move Block, and I'm going to sketch these, and I'm just going to simply move them in so that when I take a look at this now, I may move them a little too far. So let me just move those in so they sit inside the niche. And so, yeah, I just moved them a little too far inside the wall. There they are. And so as we take a look at this and we pull this back, you can now see, the tile that we're setting up just to create a different style or pattern inside the actual bathroom itself, okay? And so that's, just kind of, setting those up, to give a decorative. And I could do the same thing. I believe in the design I had one. I'm going to pick a Draw Select, so that's the letter S. Actually, I'll just Draw Select. Let's right-click on this, pick the plane, and Draw Select. And I'm just going to draw one here. And this one I'm just kind of doing by eye. Okay, but as I come in and I edit this now, and edit this plane, I'm going to give it a height of 8 feet. All right, and the width, we'll just make it 12 inches, let's say, and I can always center that on the actual drawing itself. And so I pick the center line, and just move it into place where I want it to be. And so, and as I come back into the 3D, okay, it maintained the offset of what we had, so I need to just edit this and give it an, if I go into the common, the offset really just needs to be 11.65 inches. And that tile, I could make that smaller. It looks a little bit on the large side, and so I'll maintain the aspect ratio, but I just want a smaller glass tile that's going to be in there. And so I'll just, shrink that pattern down a little bit, on the actual drawing itself. Okay, and so, again, this is just a matter of, I'm just playing now with designs, right? I'm picking the, what's the colors that I want to use, or what's the style that I want to use as far as the color is concerned. So I'm going to come back down to tile, and I want to take a look at what I've got here. I'm just, running through the different options that are there, and I want to find something that's a little bit lighter. I'm going to not maintain that aspect ratio, but I'm going to go back to the 1'6" by 8 inches. And what you see there is just coming down to the relief depth, and so I'm going to turn that off, and so that it doesn't look quite so rough, as far as that goes, creating on the relief depth. And so now we can see that we're beginning to get some tile patterns in there. We've got our vanities that are set up. Again, we could come in and add like a tile backsplash on the back of this that would match all of this over here. Okay, we've got our wall colors set up. So I think the next thing that we want to do is we want to make sure we get some electrical in here just to finish, as far as lighting is concerned. And so I'm going to just, do a save. And I'm going to come in through the, the electrical option that is, located here. And so we can take a look at the drawing and go in through the electrical symbols. And I'm just going to do a quick search for can lights. And so when I do this, it's going to pull up, my different lights that are there. So if I pick this 6-inch can light here and click OK, I may place one over the shower. okay, and I may do a copy of that light and place another one here, and then I may just come in through the move and copy block, and again these could be dimensioned into place, but I'm just kind of randomly right now just placing some lights over the where I want them to be. And so by doing that, and if I come back in through options, material, remember I turned the ceiling off for a second while we were looking down at it. I'm going to turn that ceiling back on because I want to begin to see how the lighting works inside the actual room itself. And as we move forward with this model, that's going to be kind of a key thing. We're also going to want to possibly place, lighting, if you will, on either side of the mirror. And so this mirror, I may wind up coming in now and actually just adjusting that size so that it fits a little bit smaller and gives me room inside the interior mode to come in through draw. And if I go to electrical symbols, and I'm just going to go to wall lights, okay, and we've got all kinds of different sconces and so on that we could put in there, whether we wanted to put a light over the mirror or whether we wanted to flank it on either side with a light. And so now, because I've got the room, I could place one and then just copy the other across. And as I look at this inside 3D, okay, you can see that I've got the actual lighting going on there. All right, so again, we're doing a lot of just kind of placing of for the actual design itself. I'm just kind of scrolling around and taking a look at it, for getting the kind of the soul of the actual plan together, and then we can figure out some of the smaller details that are going to go with this. So if I'm looking at this from an interior perspective, we've got the lighting in, okay, we've built the shower, we've put the curbs in and so on, and one of the options that was kind of not in there at this stage was going to be placing shelves here and then placing little things like towels and so on underneath, okay, and again those are crucial to the design of the shelf itself, but not necessarily, had to be something that was in there right away. Same thing, we're going to probably change the surface material and put the nosing on the counter now that we're getting, closer to the finish on this, as far as the design goes. And so I'm going to do this inside the main floor plan, and I'm going to come in through draw, inside the actual drawing mode, and I'm going to pick the actual rod and shelf command. And oftentimes this is associated, rightfully so, with closets. But in my case, I'm actually editing, I'm going to edit this and place it below the actual vanities. And you can see in the preview over here, it's actually set the entire thing up so that it's at a typical height for a rod and shelf. And so I'm going to turn the rod off so we no longer have that. And I could even go in and modify the thickness if I wanted something that was a little beefier, so a full 1.5 inches, just so it gets some thickness on there. And then I may come in and put an offset in of, let's just say 2 feet to to get started. But actually that's probably going to need to be closer to let's do 8 inches. As far as that goes. And so now I'll come in and I'll take a look at this inside the elevation view. And there's the shelf running across. I put 8 inches in. I could also use the move tool to move this site-wise. Okay, so you can edit it, you can do it by site. All right, and in my case, as I'm looking at this now, I can now come in and using the edit, surface copy, paste, copy the exact same pattern or finish onto that panel that's going to be there, okay? And now you're into just little things like do you want to put the towels and so on underneath? Again, those are just symbols that are in there. So if I do a search, okay, I can run down and I can begin to find bathroom towels and so on. These are all just listed in there. I'll place a couple in as far as or I'll place 2 in, because what I'll wind up probably doing is, and those are fairly large, so let's do something like that. And then when I come into the 3D, this is where, because they cleaned up to the top of the top of the vanity, which would make sense, okay? And this is, where the interior view may come into play a little bit easier for placing of things, right, for elevations and so on. And this is where I could then come in using the copy tool and begin to copy a few of those, where I want them to be, okay, just for the perspective of the 3D and so on. All right. I'm going to take a look at this inside the textured mode, inside the interior view, and so it begins to, give me a better perspective of what this will look like. And so, including shadows and so on as the light fixtures begin to be displayed. I can see I need to obviously add some GFI outlets, etc. And so again, this can all be done here inside the elevation mode. I'm just going to do a quick search for, the outlet, and so I can see, I could place one here, and then I could, also go in and, move or copy another one to the other side. And so let's do that and click OK. All right, so as I'm taking a look at this inside 3D, I can take a look. There's my outlets. Again, those could have been dimensioned into place. And a few of the last things that I want to do with this, as our hour comes quickly to a close, would be to take the textured mode at this stage up to another level, which is to do things like reflections and so on. And so as I'm looking at this and looking at it head on, I'm going to come in through the options. I'm going to come in through the mode options. It's here. And currently, as I ratchet up the anti-aliasing, what it's going to do is it's going to give me a crisper image, okay, more detailed, if you will. On the face options, I'm going to start to turn on reflections. That's going to allow the mirror to reflect things, per se, in the background. Lighting, I could now begin to come in and customize certain lighting that's going to happen as far as sun and shadows and so on, and how they're going to be, affected, I turned the background off. This is where I could turn the sky back on and have that, kind of in the background as far as that option is concerned. And so when I get there, I'll just hit OK and let this thing, begin to run through. And you can begin to see, the depth. And this is in textured mode. We're not even in ray trace mode, which allows for a lot of the light sourcing to be bounced and allows it to go to a much deeper or, more photorealistic level. This is, just finishing up, and then I'm going to take a quick look at making a modification to the counter itself. And so I'm going to edit this counter, and right now it is granite, and that's fine, but I want to add a nosing to it, and I want to come in and change the, the nosing to, something other than what we have there. So let's just, to enhance the detail that's on that. And I'm going to change this from granite to marble and just regenerate that quickly. So you can see why I do a lot of the work initially inside shaded mode, and then begin to graduate to textured mode, and even before I turn on reflections, try to get a lot of the detail in there, because at this stage now, as we begin to make changes, it's going to slow down the process. And so I'm going to stop this right away, and I'm going to edit or do a surface edit on this, because right now that's not the material that that I necessarily want. And so I'm just going to, come in and take a look at what's available. I'm going to pick something a little bit lighter as far as the marble's concerned, and now I'll regenerate it. And so that's just, how you can, if you begin to see something that you're not necessarily, wanting, then you could, by all means stop it in the middle of the regeneration and then have it applied. And so you can begin to see the model being, generated on screen as it adds, to the different options. And so I needed to repeat edit the same change across each of these, because I had taken them out of cleanup and they were no longer being, if you will, modified as a collective unit, but rather individual cabinets, so they could have feet on the end and not feet in the middle, and so on. So Let's just let this generate real quickly so that you can see it. But we have been, just while that's coming up and it's applying the different marble texture, and nosing to this, that was an hour. And, it certainly didn't, it gives, in this case, plenty for the customer to be able to see. As I begin to pan about, you can see that we'll be able to see exactly what the shower is going to look like, with the reflections and so on. We see what the vanity had to look like over there on in the center option right here, and we made good use of SoftPlan's textures and so on. If this was submitted to a client for initial perspective, I think there's a lot there that they would be able to take away from this. Again, just with a little bit of time and taking it into ray tracing mode, you would be able to generate something like this. This is fully through to the ray trace, but it's all the same symbols and cabinets that were used just a moment ago, with reflections turned on as far as with the faucets and so on. Thank you for today, for being able to attend today. That actually concludes our hour on the Friday Fundamental of doing a bathroom design within SoftPlan. I think that hopefully you picked up a lot from that. This will be edited and then posted to our webpage sometime next week. And if you go to the softplan.com Training Friday Fundamentals page, you'll find a list of all of the videos that we have done on these classes overall. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a great weekend.